The dense forest seemed endless, every tree towering over the next, their thick branches intertwining like ancient fingers sealing the sky. Sunlight filtered through the leaves in feeble shafts, barely illuminating the forest floor where a man was running, desperate and wild-eyed. His breath came in ragged bursts, his clothes were torn by brambles, and his feet were caked with mud. Every step was a plea for freedom, every stride an attempt to outrun the suffocating grip of the woods. He glanced upward, searching for the sun, the one true guide out of this tangle of green and shadow. But even that lifeline was slipping away, the golden orb dipping lower with each passing minute, threatening to abandon him to the coming night. Still he kept running, compelled by a hope that somewhere ahead, the trees would thin, the sky would open, and the world beyond would welcome him back. But the forest grew denser, and the darkness deeper. Suddenly, ahead, a board loomed, its old wood bearing a chilling inscription, "Point of no return." Below these words, the number 108 was etched, stark and unyielding. The man's heart hammered with dread. He pressed on, but the air was growing cold, and the silence pressed in, broken only by the distant rustle of leaves. As the last light faded, a strange fear settled over the forest. The birds, once hidden among the branches, erupted in a frenzy, fleeing the trees with panicked cries. Yet, for all the man's frantic running, there was not a single wild animal to be seen. It was as if the creatures of the forest had vanished, sensing a threat even more profound than his own terror. Driven by growing panic, the man sprinted faster, hoping that speed alone might break the spell of this place. Hours passed, and exhaustion threatened to pull him down, but as he stumbled forward, gasping for breath, he found himself once again at the same sign, "Point of no return, 108." The realization crashed down upon him that escape was impossible, that the forest was a labyrinth with no exit. Despair gnawed at his resolve. He searched for a place to hide, but the undergrowth offered no shelter, the trees no refuge. In desperation, he climbed a tree, hoping to gain a new perspective, but the branch gave way beneath his weight, and he crashed to the ground, pain flaring in his limbs. As he lay there, barely conscious, the ground began to tremble, and a guttural growling echoed through the forest. His breath caught in his throat. Before he could react, unseen hands dragged him into the darkness, and his scream pierced the night. Days passed, and the city bustled with life, oblivious to the horrors of the forest. In a quiet bird shop, a woman named Mina worked with gentle hands, tending to the chirping occupants of the cages. Her boss entered, his eyes alight with excitement as he handed her a golden parrot, instructing her to deliver it to a client named Z in a remote location. Mina accepted the task, programmed the address into her phone, and set off, the golden parrot's cage resting beside her on the passenger seat. As she left the city behind, she passed a board plastered with missing persons photos, faces lost to the world, their stories untold. She barely spared them a glance, focused instead on her journey. The road narrowed, winding into the heart of the forest. To save time, Mina took a shortcut, her car bouncing along the uneven path. The trees pressed closer and the light dimmed. Soon she reached a clearing, the very place where the man had disappeared days before. Mina checked her phone, no signal. The radio was a hiss of static. Anxiety gnawed at her. She turned to leave, but the road seemed unfamiliar, every tree a twin of the last. Her car sputtered and died. She stepped out, and there it was, the point of no return sign, number 108 glaring at her in the growing gloom. She clutched the parrot's cage, searching for help, but found nothing but silence. When she returned, her car was gone. Panic flared. Had she wandered too far, or was the forest playing tricks on her mind? Every direction looked the same, the gathering darkness blurring her sense of place. Suddenly, all the birds took flight, shrieking as they vanished into the sky. The ground trembled beneath her feet, and Mina sensed a presence nearby. In the distance, she glimpsed a shadow moving swiftly between the trees. She chased after it, calling for help, but the figure melted away. Then she saw her, a hunched old woman darting through the woods. Mina pursued her, pleading for help, but the woman only quickened her pace. Finally, the old woman slipped through the door of a ramshackle room nestled in the forest's heart. beckoning Mina to follow if she wished to survive. Mina, driven by fear and hope, dashed inside. The door slammed shut behind her. Within, the room was strange, dominated by a massive mirror. Two others, a young woman named Kiara and a quiet boy called Daniel, huddled with the old woman, Madeline. Mina demanded answers, but Madeline urged her to stand before the mirror. Someone was coming to see them. As night fell, eerie noises echoed from outside. Kiara whispered about the Watchers, beings who observed from the other side of the mirror, unseen but ever present. Every night after sunset, the Watchers arrived, their invisible gaze piercing the glass until dawn. Suddenly, applause rang out from the other side. Mina trembled with fear, desperate to escape, but Madeline cautioned patience. Morning brought respite. The Watchers retreated, and the forest seemed almost normal in the daylight. Mina yearned for escape, but Madeline warned her. The signs marked a boundary, an invisible prison. The forest was a hunter, and they were its prey. The point of no return signs circled the woods, the room their only sanctuary. Kiara confided her own story, how she and her husband had stumbled into the forest months ago, only for him to vanish while searching for a way out. Now, each day, the group foraged for food, and each night, they endured the Watchers' gaze. The cycle seemed endless, hope fading with each sunrise. Yet, within the darkness, Mina found a fragile strength. As the days stretched on, she began to understand her companions' resilience, their quiet resolve to survive. The forest was relentless, its mysteries impenetrable, but together they faced the night, determined to endure until the sun rose once more. Long ago, in a remote and tangled forest, a small group of people found themselves trapped by forces beyond their understanding. Among them was Mina, a woman who had come to this place under mysterious circumstances, only to discover that the rules of survival were unlike anything she could have imagined. The air was thick with secrets, and every shadow seemed to harbor a hidden threat. The group was led by Madeline, a woman who had been in the forest longer than the rest and who claimed to know the only way to stay alive. Madeline insisted on 3 rules that seemed simple, yet carried a weight of desperation. First, never open the door of the shelter at night, no matter who or what called from the darkness. Second, never turn your back to the mirrors during the night, and never bend your waist toward them. Third, during the day, keep away from the deep, ominous pits scattered through the woods, and always remain in the light as much as possible. These rules, she said, were the only things keeping them from a fate worse than death. Mina, however, had begun to doubt Madeline's warnings. She wondered if the stories of the Watchers, the unseen predators stalking the forest, were just tales meant to keep the group obedient. That night, curiosity and suspicion gnawed at her. She sat before the mirror, pressing her ear against the cold glass, straining to hear any sound that might betray the truth. But the silence was unbroken, and Mina's skepticism grew. Defiantly, she broke one of Madeline's cardinal rules. She slept with her back turned to the mirror. As the hours passed, something changed in the house. The air grew heavy, and a dreadful pounding echoed through the room. The Watchers, angered by the perceived insult, hammered at the glass, their fury palpable. Madeline awoke in a panic, gasping for breath, as the oppressive force of the Watchers seemed to fill the room. She rushed to Mina's side, her fear clear. Gradually, the Watchers' anger dissipated, but a lesson had been learned. These were not empty threats. The next day, Mina joined Daniel, another survivor, on a hunt for food. She pressed him for answers, asking if he had ever seen the Watchers. Daniel shook his head. "No one who has seen them has survived," he replied grimly. Mina confided her doubts, suggesting that Madeline might be inventing threats to keep them all under her control. Together, they decided to investigate the pits, hoping to uncover a way out. At the edge of one of the pits, Mina tied a rope around her waist and descended into the darkness, while Daniel held the other end. Deep within, she discovered remnants of those who had come before. Shattered belongings, a camera, a bicycle, and other necessities left behind by the Watchers' victims. She gathered what she could, hoping these items might hold the key to their escape. But before Mina could climb out, chaos erupted above. The rope jerked, and a cold, pale hand reached for her from the shadows. Mina instinctively stepped into a slant of sunlight, and the watcher's hand recoiled, blistering as it touched the light. Daniel, realizing the danger, quickly pulled Mina to safety. Terrified, they returned to their shelter with the salvaged gear. Madeline immediately questioned them about the source of the items. Mina and Daniel lied, claiming to have found them in the forest, but Madeline saw through the deception. She knew only one place in the woods held such a collection: the pits. She pressed Mina for details, but Mina remained silent. That night, Daniel rigged the camera to a television, hoping to catch a glimpse of the watchers. Madeline pleaded with them to stop, warning that they were provoking the creatures, but curiosity and desperation overpowered caution. As night deepened, a knock came at the door. On the television, a pair of human legs appeared, and the voice outside imitated Kiara's husband. Pleading, familiar, and chillingly wrong, Kiara, desperate for hope, rushed to open the door. Madeline stopped her just in time, insisting that it was impossible for anyone to reach them at night. She urged Kiara to test the stranger with a question only her real husband would know. The imposter hesitated, unable to answer. Realizing the truth, the group recoiled in horror. Enraged by their resistance, the watchers smashed the camera and battered the glass, cracks spidering across its surface. Madeline quickly arranged everyone in a line facing the mirrors, calming the watchers' wrath. But the group's unity was fracturing. Guilt and fear gnawed at them. The next morning, Madeline gathered the forbidden items and threw them back into the pit, hoping to appease the watchers. The forest itself began to change. The lines between reality and nightmare blurred. Daniel grew increasingly agitated, his mind unraveling. Kiara, once hopeful for her husband's return, was now broken by grief. She wandered to the edge of the pits, ready to surrender herself to the abyss, but Mina intervened, pulling her back from the brink. Tensions boiled over. Daniel, consumed by paranoia, tied Madeline to a tree, declaring that he would no longer follow her rules. As darkness fell and the watchers emerged from their lairs, Mina risked everything to free Madeline. Together, they hid beneath the trees, listening to the guttural growls of the watchers as the creatures searched for prey. The watchers were tall, gaunt, and menacing, their movements unnatural. They prowled the forest, hunting for the intruders who had dared to defy their ancient laws. When the watchers finally moved on,